Howdy folks, and welcome to the Daily Coin. My name is Rory, and today is Sunday, September the 18th, 2016. And I have the very distinct honor and great pleasure of welcoming back to the show the CEO, President, and Director of Callinex Mines, Mr. Max Porterfield. And you can find Callinex Mines listed in Canada under the symbol CNX and the over-the-counter market under the symbol CLLFX. Max, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Well, I'm glad that you're here, and I understand that you're in Denver, and we'll get into that in just a minute, but I wanted to start with something that's been in the news the past few days and get your thoughts on it. And apparently there's several European banks that have been acquiring significant positions in mining stocks. And what do you think about all that? Positive, negative, doesn't matter? Grateful to have it?
No, it's great to see. I think it underpins how everyone should take a diversified approach to investing in the resource space. Of course, you can always hold the physical by buying gold or silver in coins and what have you. And I think the other way to do it, and a prudent way to do it, is to split that into two, in your portfolio into two in half, by owning both the physical and then owning the shares in the miners. Because by owning shares in these mining companies like Callinex, you actually have an ownership of the resources in the ground, or if the producers, have a piece of their production by owning the company itself. And in a rising commodity price environment, you're going to get, extra leverage from doing so by being able to capture the earnings multiple and seeing the stocks outperform the underlying commodity typically about 2 to 3 times.
Yeah, that's not uncommon to see a 2 or 3 times rise in stocks as opposed to the physical. That was certainly the case with the last major bull run. And just before we started recording, Max, you were saying that the markets right now are in just a bit of a pullback, but gold and silver have both enjoyed a really, really nice run since April, really. I mean, and now we're starting to, now that we are moving into the gold season, how do you see these last few months playing out? Is there anything in particular that's on your radar?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of the precious metal space, particularly gold, you want to go back to the seasonality of gold. About over 50% of gold demand on an annual basis is through jewelry buying. And there is a seasonality that takes place with that, along with holidays around the world, and starting off with the Indian wedding season and going to the Christmas buying and then eventually the Chinese New Year. So it's not non-typical to see this pullback take place when it is taking place. It is normal. And I think this is an opportunity to add to your positions in these type of investments if you have a bullish longer term outlook like I do.
And I as well. I see it as a long term investment, and insurance is the primary reason that I have gold and silver. They're money. They've been money for thousands of years, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. So, but we do see on the horizon some changes coming to the monetary system, and with the recent G20 meeting, and I want to ask you about that here in just a moment, but I want to give you an opportunity to tell us what you have going on with Callinex Mines, and it sounds like you guys have several drilling projects happening, and you're reviewing some previous drilled holes at the Pine Bay property. And can you just give us an update with what's happening at Pine Bay and some of these drill holes?
Yeah, absolutely. So the drills are turning up at our Pine Bay project, which is just outside of town called Flin Flon, Manitoba, which is in what's known as the Flin Flon Greenstone Belt. That's an area that's had 90 years of continuous production across 32 mines. And Hud Bay, mid-tier miner, has been the choice operator there and has a processing facility in the heart of Flin Flon. But they have a very short mine life on their existing mine, and no one's found any replacement ore to go into those processing facilities and to continue that long history of mining that's taking place in this camp. It's one of the most prolific mining camps in the world for this VMS type deposit, which are rich in copper, zinc, gold, and silver. And we've had some pretty good success with the drill bits so far in our past few drilling campaigns. We've made 2 discoveries over the past 2. Last summer, we made a discovery at the Sourdough Bay area. And then this past winter, we made another discovery at the Pine Bay East area of the property. And it's a very, it's a prudent approach to doing exploration. So we've got a roughly 3,000 meter drilling campaign taking place right now, as we're vectoring into those systems to find out where the opportunity to have, a large ore body, be displaced there. I think that'd be a big win for the company if we were able to discover that in a meaningful way, as well as for the community out there in Flin Flon, as well as our investors, of course, would see huge benefits for that. And then concurrently, we have closed those 3 zinc deposits that we acquired in Eastern Canada. And again, those are zinc-rich resources, nearly 3 billion pounds of zinc equivalent resources in the ground. And zinc's a market that I like tremendously. It's a commodity that's really driven by supply-demand fundamentals. And supply just has not had the ability to meet up with demand. It's already risen over 50% year to date. And over 30% since we acquired those deposits. And I think those are going to provide tremendous upside to our shareholders.
Did you say 3 billion pounds of zinc?
Yeah, 3 billion pounds of zinc equivalent resources across all 3 of those deposits in Eastern Canada. One of them is in Newfoundland, and then 2 of those are in New Brunswick in the Bathurst mining camp. So we've got a foothold into 2 of the largest and most well-endowed mineral resource areas in Canada for base and precious metals.
Now, will you find gold and silver in there as well, do you think? I mean, that's typically...
Yeah, absolutely. There is gold and silver in these type of deposits, which is what makes them so unique, is they're polymetallic. So while you have the base metals, in terms of copper and zinc and lead, you also have the precious metals component, which can add a tremendous amount of value to the resources in the ground of the deposit. With the gold and silver component. Take, for example, our Point Leamington deposit there. We have nearly 500,000 ounces of gold that's near surface there that's been drilled out historically. And we went out and acquired these deposits really when zinc was out of favor and everyone didn't really favor zinc at the time. But, things that go out of favor come back into vogue very quickly. And that's just the nature of investing in the natural resource space.
Well, it sounds like you guys are in a really good position at this point, and like we were just talking about, going into the current gold season, and it sounds like that possibly for next year's gold season, you guys will be sitting in really good position to meet the coming demand for next year.
No, absolutely. We're very excited about the drilling that's going on outside of Flin Flon. If you're taking, for example, the 777 mine, which is actually found on our predecessor's claims, the royalty alone on that mine, which went into production in 2004, has paid out just over $130 million or so. That's Canadian dollars, and that's just a royalty. So you can see the real value proposition in making a discovery for a company. And when we're doing drilling, we actually control 100% interest in the Pine Bay project.
Nice.
So it could be a huge impact for us and the community of Flin Flon out there and our shareholders to make a discovery. And that's what we're doing right now, is doing that drilling and hope to have those drill results out in the near future. And then we'll, of course, be following up with a winter drilling campaign as well.
Well, and it sounds like the area that you're in, their local economy is going to benefit from what you guys are doing. And while we look around and we see that the global economy is still very weak, and to say the least that it's weak, and cashless society is back in the news. And what do you see, Max, as the biggest hindrance to our economies at this time in light of everything that's going on?
Yeah, I think that I'm really quite concerned, particularly being an American living in Canada, with the spending on the government. I think it has gone unchecked for too long. The amount of debt loads that these governments around the world have is unsustainable, and that's my real concern. That how are they going to fix this? And coming to a balanced budget is not going to really, I don't think, going to fix anything in the near term it's a step in the right direction if they ever do it. But this continuous spending with no checks and balances put in place to really prevent these guys from continuing to turn the printing presses on.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous what the Federal Reserve is doing and what it has done to our economy, not just the American economy, but economies around the world, since it is the world reserve currency at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, just think about it from a household standpoint. I mean, it'd be nice to think that you can just continue to go out and put more money on your credit card every month if you want to buy nice things, or you just don't want to live within your means. But we all know that we can't do that. We're held accountable for that, and the bank wants their money back, right?
Right.
And so, this is completely unsustainable, and I think the politicians need to be held in the same regard as, we are as households.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly, and I think that every one of them that are in Congress right now need to be replaced, and starting at the top and all the back hallways, all of the offices up and down those hallways, everybody needs to go. The whole thing needs to be cleared out and just start afresh. And I really hope that something along those lines happens, because that's really the only way we're going to have an opportunity to get back to the Constitution, is to just gut the whole thing and start over.
Well, I mean, I think what's ironic about the whole situation is they sit and they point to Wall Street. I mean, Callinex being a publicly traded company as well. I mean, we could be kind of lumped into that basket and saying the Wall Street's run rampant and they're taking advantage of this and that. And then Wall Street's driven by quarterly earnings and quarterly results. And so they take unnecessary risks to meet those expectations for investors that kind of continue to drive things forward. While I don't disagree with some of that, to take a look at how a politician operates. They're elected on a basis that they're going to deliver on something. So then they go out and they have such a short-term outlook because they're really putting their interest before everyone else's interest because they want to get reelected.
Right.
So you see this time and time again, they're acting the same way as a CEO of a public company that's trying to meet up with the investors' expectation and taking undue risks and trying to make everything prettier in the shorter term when they might not have the biggest and most the best outcome for the longer term for the company. They're doing the same thing, but they're doing it with our futures.
Yep. And it's wrong. It's time for a change. And I'd mentioned
it's time for change, and I think it starts with them, right?
Exactly. That's exactly right. And I'd mentioned just a moment ago that the G20, that annual meeting was just held in China. And as I'm sure you're aware, the yuan is now going to be included in the SDR basket of currencies at the end of business on September the 30th. And Canada, oddly enough, just after the G20 meeting, decided to join the Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank, the AIIB. And with this move, or is this a signal to the U.S. that maybe that China is the big dog on the block, or do you see this move as having any significance at all? Are you familiar with it?
Well, I think this move, I think in terms of the bringing that into the world's, kind of the basket of reserve currencies, it was a long time coming. I think that China's, it is an economic powerhouse. The sheer population alone dwarfs ours, and they are going to be an area of growth globally for the global economy going forward, and they have been over the past few decades, and really kind of taken the lead from that extent, as the U.S. has been a more developed economy. I think the Canadian move, to a lesser extent, is not a surprise either, given the fact that if you look in terms of direct foreign investment into Canada, a lot of that has been Chinese investments into Canada's natural resources. In fact, if you look at the zinc space in particular, most all of the large zinc deposits in Canada have some type of ownership by a Chinese investment arm. And then, they've also done it more recently in the uranium space as well. So I think this is kind of probably following suit in terms of the longer relationship the Canadians have had with the Chinese. But absolutely, in terms of foreign policy, I think there have been a lot of missteps by our leadership in terms of the influence they've tried to have and exert globally. maybe in the wrong way at the wrong time has really, I think, hurt foreign policy for the United States rather than help.
I would agree with that. I mean, I think that we've got to look at home first. I mean, just like what we were talking about as far as taking care of business at home, that's where it begins. So, and we can't.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't, I mean, imagine, I mean, you can't have influence everywhere all the time and be the most powerful thing in every area of influence you want to be in. And I think that's where we've made a mistake as a country, be it the United States, is in terms of trying to have influence on in too many areas, when really we should have focused on where we want to have that influence and where that really is going to have the biggest impact for us here at home. Absolutely.
And last question, Max, and then I'll let you get back to your morning. I know you're busy, and wanted to get your thoughts on the upcoming U.S. election. And do you see Hillary making it to the election with all of her health problems? And if she does, in fact, make it, which of the two primary candidates, being Hillary or Trump, which one would you see as being better for gold and silver, and why is that?
In terms of Hillary, I think Hillary is going to make it. I think really how that whole situation was handled just really underpins the lack of transparency she's had, and I definitely don't think it's going to help anyone, her campaign at all, in terms of perception of anyone can trust her. I think her biggest issue is being able to trust anything that she says is coming out of her mouth on a number of different factions, whether it be her health, obviously the email and how that's handled, and a lot of different things going back to Benghazi.
Yep.
So I think that's just another instance that's going to show the American people that they might not be able to trust her. And I think that ultimately, the big question with Trump is he can kind of go off and say some off-the-wall stuff, and it isn't the traditional politician. If he cleaned it up and toned down his behavior, he could win easily in a landslide. Ultimately, I think it's going to be a very, very close race in terms of who would be better for gold and silver. I can say with a lot of certainty it'd be Trump, just because there's so much uncertainty in terms of how he's going to be acting as a president, and the precious metal space is going to be a safe haven. And so I think a lot of investors would park their money into the precious metal space, in either buying physical or buying the shares of the public companies that have exposure to that, if he were to become elected as president.
So you don't necessarily see either one of them kind of looking at various policies that would influence or that would impact gold and silver as money, or
I think the policies. I think the policies in particular that they're going to have that I've seen, they really both stated it, and you've actually seen the same thing here in Canada. I live in Vancouver now, with infrastructure spending, and I think that's something that is where I see a lot of opportunity in terms of they can actually do a lot of good for the country as well as the overall economy and bringing jobs, job growth, is on infrastructure spending. Because if you compare infrastructure in the United States to any of these emerging economies, there is no question about it. We're really behind the times.
yes,
Whether it be our bridges or roadways or airports, for example. I don't know if you've flown out of any of the airports, JFK or LaGuardia, Chicago Midway, but they're really incredibly dated relative to what you see in the rest of the world in terms of these bigger economies. China, for example, has really part of their government policy, and to kind of facilitate job creation, is the infrastructure build up they've had with their interstates, and that was the interstate build out in the United States in the 1950s was really a big growth factor for the economy during that time. So to see either of those politicians follow suit, because they both have stated they want to have infrastructure spending policies, I think that'd be great for both us as citizens being able to see that our tax dollars are going to something material we can actually see and get some return on, as well as it has huge implications on job creation. What's known as the Kuznets cycle, where when you have infrastructure spending in an economy, it has job creation for 20 years, so it has a lasting impact. And it'd be really great to see with either candidate.
it would be great to see some focus on infrastructure. And here, here at home, as opposed to focusing on other nations and other economies. And let's look at home for a minute. I mean, I like home.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm here in Denver for a big conference this week, enjoyed being back. And I think that when you see that infrastructure spending, that's really going to be pushing the base metals, which is where Callinex is well positioned. It's got exposure again to both base and precious metals, but with that large zinc inventory, being those deposits in North America, close to home, it really would stand to benefit, in terms of the price appreciation for zinc, because you had about 30% of supply come offline. A majority of above ground stockpiles for zinc have now been depleted, but you don't have that big incentive price for new zinc production to come online. And I think that's going to even further that if this policy comes into place with this the presidential election cycle, ending here in November, and those policies kind of being laid out to see those kind of come to fruition, will have a big impact on the zinc and base metal space, because again, zinc's used for galvanizing steel, and as you know, steel's a big part of any infrastructure project out there.
Yep. And copper as well, and you guys are well positioned with copper as well, and I think that these policies, if they in fact come to fruition, would be huge for you guys, for Callinex Mines. I think that it would be a boon for you. So hopefully we'll see some.
No, absolutely. You're actually still seeing that infrastructure build out in China,
Right?
As well. And Goldman Sachs actually came out recently, and probably about 2-3 months ago, and stated to the purest way to get exposure to Chinese infrastructure build out that's occurring there currently is actually through zinc, because it is going to be so sensitive to that. So you're seeing it around the world. It'd be great to see it back home, to really see the U.S. get that infrastructure back, and being one of those places when people visit, they're just wowed by everything that they see.
Yes.
Like you do in so many of these Asian countries now.
It's unfortunate that you have to see the really cool new designs and architecture, and like you were saying, the new airports and railway stations and all that. You have to see those elsewhere, because everything here at home is 20 to 50 to 75 years old, if not older. Which there's nothing wrong with history.
Yeah, I mean,
don't get me
going
wrong.
to Singapore, their infrastructure is amazing. You go to Hong Kong, you can actually check your baggage at the train station, and then just go to the airport, and you've already got your luggage checked. You don't have to worry about carrying around anywhere. It's incredible.
That would be pretty cool.
It'd be nice to be able to do that when I come to Chicago or New York, LA. LA in particular is very kind of hectic to get around. But it'd be great to see, and it'd be, I think, great for the economy overall.
I couldn't agree with you more. And hopefully Callinex Mines will get all this 3 billion pounds of zinc out of the ground, and be at the forefront of these new policies if they get implemented. That would be a win-win for everybody. So
absolutely, we're certainly eager for the opportunity.
Well, and we've been speaking with Max Porterfield, and he is the CEO, President, and Director of Callinex Mines, and you can find out more about them at callinex.ca, and their symbol up in Canada on the TSX Venture is CNX, and on the over-the-counter market at CLLFX. Max, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I look forward to speaking with you in the not-too-distant future.
Thanks so much, and look forward to the opportunity.